Hi kitty cats. This video here is an excerpt from a Tuesday Tidbits live stream I did on July 15th, 2025. My guest that night was Starre Vartan, who talked about her new book, The Stronger Sex, which is about the differences in biology between male and female human bodies. Spoiler alert, the differences are more social than scientific. So I hope you enjoy this short collaboration with Starre Vartan. Talk soon. Bye. Starre Vartan, hello, look at
Oh,
you.
hi. So awesome to be here, especially
No,
today of all days.
I know it was so amazing that I'm looking at the book, right? I'm looking at the book last night, and well, there you go. I I kept on showing I have the web page up for your book. Um, oh, look at there you go. Margie says that it's the purple room. Oh my God! Wait, Torin, is that true? So Torin says the Human Genome Project, you know what I'm saying, cost $3 billion. Holy cats! That's a whole lot. All right. Anyway, Starre is the author of The Stronger Sex. It's a book that came out literally today, which is pretty sweet. How are you feeling about that first? Let me just ask that.
Well, first, it is a little anticlimactic because, I've been writing articles in support of it and I've gotten all kinds of like awesome coverage all over the place. So those have all been really exciting. And so the day of, you're like, what's this supposed to be like? And I did not like plan like a big party or anything. So I'm just kind of like vibing at my house. I did an NPR interview this morning with like a local
Oh my
authority in
gosh.
Utah, and I'm talking to you. So I don't know. This is
Yeah.
perfect for me. I went for a swim. I mean, this is kind of like my speed of the way to do things.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's different.
Yeah. So now you're totally slumming it with me. You talk to NPR.
An affiliate.
I'm not even an affiliate. So why did you write this book? I mean, I know, but everybody else, why did you write this book?
Well, first we should mention that you are in the book. And so that is one of the reasons that we know
Oh,
each other.
I
So,
mentioned it. Yeah. No, it was like the first 5 minutes of this show. I was like, here's the book, and the author's going to be on. I'm
okay.
in it, everybody.
I
So
was I was still out riding my bike home at the beginning of your show, so forgive me.
I know. I know.
Well, so yeah, I wrote this book because I had grown up in the Hudson Valley of New York with my grandma. She was really like a really amazing, challenging, tough, fun, loving parent. And we had a property, and she was like, "Get to it, kid. Like, I've got a worker here." So I was doing all kinds of manual labor since I was pretty young, including like really tough physical chores. And so the lessons I learned at home and from my grandma, who was like chopping wood in her 70s, was that, we could do all kinds of hard stuff with our bodies. And then when I
Yeah.
went to school in summer camp, I got very different lessons about how much, I should ask boys and men to help me to do things I knew I could do myself, like carrying chairs around and things. And
Jeez.
so it was like my whole childhood and young adulthood, I had this like tension of like, am I supposed to hide how strong I am or what I can do? And I guess so if
Yeah.
I want to fit in, but like this is so stupid. And being raised by a very independent grandma, I was very sort of, I had that questioning spirit, and it continued into, my early career. I was a scientist like you, in geology, and then I turned to science writing, and because I really wanted to get into many of the things that I think are incorrect and cultural stories,
Yeah.
including this one. So I've written about a lot of different topics where I feel like the dogma should be challenged. So that's kind of
Oh,
my
sure.
remit.
Yeah. You brought up cultural, and the thing is that most of what you talked about at the beginning, like going to summer camp and being said, "Oh, well, go ask the boys to help you carry chairs." That is only cultural.
Yeah, and it's also was like bizarre because I'm a sort of like tallish, muscular person naturally, and you know, throughout like most of childhood up until 12, 13, like the girls are bigger than the boys. Like it was just such a weird mindset.
Right.
And then those cultural stories really inform how we think of ourselves, and they also
Yeah.
inform the activities we choose to do. And I love the fact that you were talking about genetics right before I came on, because one of the things I've been thinking about so much is this, you know, genetics environment interaction. We now know it's not one or the other, it's both, right? And that comes
Yeah.
into account so much when we're talking about our bodies. What we do as kids, what we do through puberty, especially, is incredibly important to our physical abilities later in life. So, girls who are doing really tough exercise and building muscle during that age have greater capacity when they get older. And this is something they've sort of just discovered. There's a researcher in Australia, Sophia Nymphius, who's really
Mhm.
examined sort of like this age, this age gap in when you start training in soccer camps. For like the elite soccer players of the world will go to these camps when they're teenagers, before they're elite, obviously. And the camps start at the same age, but girls start going through puberty earlier.
Mm.
So they lose out on this year or more of advantage of training
Oh,
through that time. So the
yeah.
female players eventually are actually at a slight disadvantage from that, unless they have other sources of potential training. And that's just one tiny little nugget of very recent research that really kind of like challenges what we think of bodies as capable of, because you start as a baby and a toddler and a child and a girl. I was doing a lot of manual labor, but most are not. And then you have, you know, these expectations and rules, even sometimes, about what different people can and cannot do. And that informs what your body looks like as a 20-year-old or as a 30-year-old.
Yeah. Do you the shoot. Oh, I do know what I was going to say. You what you're talking about here too, because you've defined fitness. Um, in your book you talk about flexibility, strength, and endurance. That these are that it's all. I held up four fingers. It's all three of these. It's all three of these that really define a body that is. I don't even know if I want to use the word strong. A body that is capable. You need all three. Strength is not enough. And yeah, sure, maybe a male, an assigned male at birth body has strength, but if that body has no endurance, what's the point? And if the muscles are so tight that that person's going to end up hurting himself doing whatever, doing the movements, again. So you've brought that up in your book, and I kind of shifted gears on you a little bit, but I like how you make a little bit of a redefinition there on what would be a capable body. Because I'm gonna stop talking. I'm done. Keep going. Do you want to pick?
No, no, I was gonna say I would actually say a strong body, because I mean, my major thesis is that, like, why have we defined what strength means based on what, you know, a sign male at birth bodies can do a little bit better. And of course there's tremendous
Right.
overlap. You know, there are female bodybuilders who are much stronger than random guys, and there
Yes.
are, you know, guys who have tremendous endurance and are amazing, you know, long distance runners, etc. So, and that's actually really important. There's so much more overlap between and among, you know, not to use the binary, among the sexes. um like, there's so much more overlap, and we really love to focus on the
Yeah.
binary
Yeah.
differences. And one of the things that Sophia Nymphius, that same researcher that I mentioned, is looking at is, what if we don't look at sex for a minute, for just like take a break for a sec, and look at strength matching our athletes. She's a sports scientist, right? So she always is studying exercise
Yeah.
physiology. She's like, what if we are like height, weight, and then testing the strength of various body parts and matching two people, and then matching another two people, another two people, another two
Yeah.
people. And then we're sort of and then we're giving them these tests of their different body
Right.
parts. And how quickly do they tire, how strong can they be, how much weight can they lift, etc. And she's like, actually, once you do that, your biggest differences are usually not by biological sex if you're going by the binary. So there's actually a lot of the differences that we may see now that are A, cultural,
Yeah.
hugely, because you were starting as kids, and B, down to like the training and experience we have, and then also just maybe size differences, right? And so you put all of this stuff together, and all of a sudden it looks like there's these big sex differences. Maybe they're not as big as we think. And actually, it would be really useful to know where that is maybe true and where it is
Yeah.
not. And so there's just a ton of, I think what we're going to find as we move into the future, and there's more equalizing of people's experience, and there's more acceptance of and like movement away from the binary, we're going to see a lot more overlap and flexibility into different people's strengths and weaknesses. And so I think strength is going to be, I think, then not a male or female thing, even though I did use those terms in my book because that's all the science and how it's done at this point. We're going to see, oh, like this person is strong in endurance. This person is strong at like lifting a heavy weight or chucking a ball, or this person is like incredibly precise, right? And we see a little of that in our sports already. So you think of, a gymnast, and their precision is really important, as well as like this incredible strength and balance. And that's an area where female bodies tend to do really, really well.
Yeah.
They've also been allowed to do well there, right?
Yeah. Well, so you've brought up even more. So now there's balance, because you also bring up resistance to pain. That assigned female at birth people tend to have much better resistance to pain. I want to read a quick comment here too. This is one that you're not going to see on the side there. So Matt says the number of random guys who think they could take a trained female MMA fighter in a match is wild. Well, yeah,
Yes.
but
I see those comments too.
I mean, it's hilarious. But so yeah, I mean, we need a bunch more definitions, because now, so now Ms. Lewis says strength matching makes all the sense in the world. Margie has said the same. Where was this? Performance matching is a good idea for sports competition. I've brought this up because, there's always some Yahoo who's going to drop in and go, well, just stay out of women's sports. And I'm like, why? Because if I went into gymnastics, I would just be crushed. I mean, I'm big and fat, and I'm not going to make it through. I'm not going to be able to do a cartwheel. Okay. You put me into like a boxing ring with Amani Khalif. You put me on the track with Caster Semenya. Not going to do very well against these people. And it has nothing to do with an X chromosome. It has all to do with training, but it also has to do with some people are more capable at athletics than others. And anyway, go ahead.
No, exactly. I think that's such a hugely overlooked thing. And the other thing that is also, and maybe this is something, you've talked about before, but like there's all these differences among even same-sex athletes in the current paradigm. And like if you're 8 inches taller than the next runner, Usain Bolt being the example of that's a huge advantage. Like why is that advantage okay? But like a difference in hormones is not, right. Or a difference in some other body part. Like it's just when you really start like breaking it down and breaking it apart, and also understanding how little actual research and like numbers we have, like, well, how much does testosterone help an athlete? We have no idea. How much does estrogen or, these things, a higher or lower estrogen in an athlete help or hurt them? We have no idea. Like we literally don't know any of these things. And then we're making rules around them, which just seems like so absurd to me. And that I understand it's difficult to be in an in-between place, but I also think there's a lot of rules being made based on like things we think we know, and people being really sure about them, and we absolutely do not, which is so frustrating. Once you like know a little bit and you start breaking it apart, you're like, wait, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. If that's not fair, why is that fair? It's frustrating.
Very frustrating. Oh my gosh, there's so many things to follow up on this, because that's a lot of what I talk about, that we think we know a ton of this science, and we know very little. Ultimately, we know very little. And there's a good question here. So Delos brings up the question too, if you see it there, it's about the hormonal panel. What everything Starre is saying looks. Oops. Here, I'll pull it back up. If this helps, yeah. So what it looks like in a hormone panel. So while I was active, I had no PCOS problems. Do you see where that's going?
I see the yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a hormone panel is a really interesting question. So getting hormone readings that are accurate, as anyone who's going through perimenopause and or has gone into menopause can attest to, is very, very difficult.
Sure.
Right now, that's all basically determined by symptoms, not actual hormone levels. There's a bunch of people working on that right now. Like you have to pull blood every day at the same time. You have to compare. It's like very onerous and very difficult. So that's in the medical context. Let's talk about like sports science or exercise science, or even like, oh, let's test a vaccine efficacy based on a different part of someone's cycle, or if they're in perimenopause or whatever. There's so much tremendous variability. And we don't know almost anything about that variability. Only 20% of AFABs are like have the normal, typical hormonal profile on a monthly basis if they are, menstruating. So we have all of this diversity going on, even within what we would consider like you're just run-of-the-mill, regular old people off the street and athletes. And so once you can start looking at that, and I think it's important to do that, and we're learning more. And from what I understand, there's some really interesting data from the trans community, kind of like look, hormones are actually impacting different things, and that's in the very earliest research stages, but super fascinating.
Yes.
But we don't know. PCOS being a great example. I have family members with that illness, and it manifests in different ways, and it also manifests in very high testosterone for many people. So it's like, well, does that count as a hormone imbalance? Or if it's only if you like look like a man, which is how they've been doing a lot of the very discriminatory practices against athletes. So hormones are great. We need to know a lot more. So in the book, I definitely spent basically almost 2 chapters on hormones. I followed a University of Washington immunologist for a day, and she specializes in how hormones affect immunity in particular, and just the conversations about hormones with her and how little we know, even in animal models, about how hormones impact basic immunological functions, basic metabolism, etc. There's just a lot more work to be done. And also there's tremendous diversity among people and their hormones. And I know less about, people born with male bodies, because I focused on female, but within female, it's like, I mean, it really is tremendously variable. So then, it's like, then your sort of prescription or categorization or whatever comes down to an individual level at that point. And is that how we can run a world with 8 billion people in it,
So I would say yes, because what that means is that we can't have arbitrary classifications. I think that's the best way to do it. We end up with classifications that are like more abstracted than do you have a functional ovary? Well, do you have these are not classifications that end up being valuable. I'm curious too. I want to ask you this question. Do you think we ever will have enough data that we can understand this?
Yeah, I think that there is a future where some of these questions could be more definitively answered. I think you could. So there is a company, there are two companies where, and this is preliminary and it's not like super perfect yet, but it's relatively useful. You can pee on a stick like a pregnancy test, and it gives a little readout that you can scan with your phone, and it gives you a little hormone profile for the day. So I did this because I was curious as to my own situation. I'm going to be 49 on my next birthday. I'm almost at my half birthday. And I'm like, I have to be going through perimenopause, right? It has to be happening. Like, am I? I don't feel anything. Nothing's changed. And so I was just curious because I'm nerdy and like a science person.
Sure.
And so I did this for a couple months because, and they originally developed this for people with infertility. So basically they were like going to have sex at the right
Sure.
time. Because if you're having
Yeah.
sex when you think you're ovulating, but you're actually ovulating 4 days later, then you're missing the window every month. And that's
Kind
like a
of.
really simple problem to fix, right?
Yeah.
So, but then they started rolling it out for other uses. And so if we can refine that kind of technology, you could have an easy, non-invasive way to like actually say, oh, here over the course of a year is what my hormones look like. Here's where my progesterone is, my estrogen, my luteinizing
Sure.
hormone. I would imagine you could do, testosterone and other things, and expand the ability of this test. And then you could have like a lot of data for individual people, and that could then lead to a larger scale study where you could then put 25,000 people who are doing this
Yeah.
into it and ask specific questions from there. So there is a technology aspect to this that I think could bring us some closer to some of those answers that don't involve like going and having a blood draw every day, which is a huge
Yeah.
ask. I mean, think about if you're a sports scientist and you're like, I want to see how much your ovulation affects your sports performance or whatever.
Right.
Who wants to get their blood drawn every time they go to practice? That sucks.
Nobody does. Um, yeah, my opinion is that we won't. I think that
Okay.
we will not, and I say this because I think there's just too much variability. I think there's just too much. And I've had friends who I have friends who have said, "Oh, well, we'll use AI." And I go, well, I think that would obscure things worse. Be, because we will end up blurring every individual record to the point that we come up with not very valuable long-term high population data. I think I said that. I think I finished that sentence the way I expected to. But so I think we will struggle just because there's just too much. I think there's too much to the biology. It isn't just the hormones. It isn't just it isn't a lot of things. There's nutrition we have to worry about, and we have to worry about environment. You brought up environment. We have to worry about the environment modifying the regulation of all the genes. I think there's just too many inputs, and we're not going to be able to find them all. That's my thought.
It's interesting because I have the same thought. Like I've gotten to the same place thinking about like obesity and fatness. So I did a
Yeah.
chapter on fat, and basically I came away from looking at data, which is like we've combined too much information, and that doesn't tell an
Yeah.
individual about their actual like
Yes.
risk in terms of
Right.
how fat may be helping or hurting them rather. And in some cases it helps people, and is really important because our bodies are so different. We keep fat in different places and
Yeah.
endlessly, like, so we put all the, and then we put, male and female data together into one bucket, and fat
Yeah.
behaves very differently in different bodies, both by gender, and then also by sex rather, and then also by activity and all kinds of other things. And so I've come to the conclusion of like, well, will we ever know whether like a certain level of fatness is bad for you and causes X, Y, or Z pulmonary issue or
Yeah.
cancer or whatever? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't think so, because like bodies are so different. And
Right.
as soon as you start combining that data, you're going to see some like bigger trends, but that doesn't tell the individual about their own. I mean, even if you have better data than just stupid weight, which is obviously useless if you have a lot of muscle, if you even if you're just
Yeah.
looking at percentage of fat behaves differently on different people. There's even different types of fat. So So yeah, maybe you're right that this isn't. Maybe we can only ever hope for individualized medicine and sort of information.
Yeah. And that's what I'm thinking, is that we could figure it out for ourselves. Like if we're capable, if you're capable. You mentioned that you got the little pea on the stick thing because you're a science nerd. I don't think most people would do this. This is my thought. Maybe I'm wrong. Like I would do it, but
I know
other
I went
people
and I
might
had an
not.
echocardiogram, and the guy, I was like, oh, like, let me see the screen. And he was like, usually people like don't even want to hear the sound. And I'm like, no, I want to see the inside of my heart. This is the coolest thing. How many people
Right.
have ever been able to see the inside of their heart? Like, this is amazing. And he was
Right.
like, and
Nobody does
he
that.
was like, okay, well, fine. And then he was like, are you feeling okay? I'm like, yeah, this is great. And he's like, some people get a little nauseous. I'm like, what? So, and I was like, what percentage of people want to see this? He's like, 1 or 2%. And I was
He's
like,
like, well, let me see. In 2025, you, yeah, I think that would. Can I? Sorry, I cut you off, but finish up.
no. So I think you're correct in that. I have, I'm very biased in that, like, I think people will be really interested in wanting
Yeah,
to know about their
right.
bodies. But I do think that maybe if there was a little more education and excitement around these topics and it wasn't such a black box, a lot
Yeah,
more younger people, especially, like, even just the really quick, I'll just mention, menstruation and periods are now like so much more of a like open topic among younger people.
the right,
And
right.
there's much more interest and knowledge and discussion about it. And so I think if there was more of that around all kinds of body stuff, actually there might be more people who are less afraid, freaked out, and just like put off by
Yeah,
looking at an echocardiogram or thinking about their hormones. So
yeah, yeah. Agreed. I have two questions. So comments here that I want to throw out to you. So Ms. Lewis asks the question: are you following the All of Us study? Do you know that study?
which one is that? I'm trying to remember if that's one I've seen. What is it looking at?
I don't know. Now I'm looking it up. I don't know that one. Oh, so okay. So All of Us research program is through NIH.
Hmm.
Um, so what are the? Is it all DNA? Ms. Lewis, is that DNA? I mean, I'm looking at some of this. Do you want me to? You want me to send you a link or? But it's So it looks like genomic analysis. Hang on, I'm copying and pasting. I'm throwing it into private chat and hope that you can get this.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah, so it looks like a bunch of genetic stuff, and that actually plays into the other question that I wanted to bring up anyway. So here we go. Ms.
No,
Lewis
I
says
don't
it's
know
a
this
very
one.
long.
And I just was like, oh, maybe I don't remember the name of it, but no, I don't know this one.
Yeah. So Ms. Lewis calls it very long-term project tracking health data from underrepresented demographics. So that's most of them,
Mm.
for what it's
Mhm.
what
Yeah.
it's worth. There's another question here. So I didn't know this one either. Um, I Things like this, in my opinion, and I'll show this other comment in a second. This is where I think we're going to end up just confusing ourselves because there's so much about the human genome that we just don't understand, and I think we're going to get a whole ton of data and just go, how much money do we spend, Jim? And Jim's like $3 billion. And you go, oh, well, we should probably stop, I guess. Well, do we get anything out of this? No, not really sure. So here's a related question, which I thought was good. Do you think signing up for things like 23andMe or using apps to track hormones in your blood, do you think there's value to doing these, especially 23andMe? I think that's because I ended up doing that. As all you had to do was like spit in a cup kind of thing, right? I thought that was easy, but then I got a bunch of information that ultimately, I mean, for crap's sake, I was a molecular biologist as an undergrad, and I looked at the data. I'm like, ooh, that looks complicated. I was like,
I
am I
mean,
going to sit down and do this? No. So what do you think?
so I don't have kids. I never wanted to have kids. And so this is coming from that perspective of,
Yeah.
I decided that I was going to throw all my data out there, but I completely respect and understand, even if you also don't have kids, like why you wouldn't want to do that. And there's really good arguments not to. I felt okay about it. I have a pretty like about 3/4 of my family are pretty like generic white people background stuff. I don't know. I didn't feel particularly precious about it, but I think that's a really, really personal decision. And, you know, it is scary thinking about, you know, how this stuff could be used for nefarious purposes. I also am a big
Yeah.
believer that like having a lot of data for scientists to use to try out different experiments on, it's just, you know, data, they're not using bodies, is kind of a good thing. I mean, you know, I've talked to scientists who've used sort of like publicly accessible information and even, you know, things that a lot of people might not be comfortable with. I would. So that's my personal take on it. I did 23andMe, and as you guys should know that they are in bankruptcy, and so we're not sure what's
Yes.
going to happen to that information. So if you don't want it transferred away from them, you can delete it.
Did you read the email that they sent out, by the way? Because 23andMe is in bankruptcy, but they are selling the data to an organization owned by the person who founded 23andMe. So like to my mind, it looks like it's really just kind of a shuffling money sort of thing that feels like financially one of those things that you go, this is something like, Jeff Bezos would do. This is something that like some
Financial
oligarch
move.
is.
No, I
Yeah.
didn't see that because I was like crazily working on this book coming out.
Well,
I couldn't
sure.
keep up on everything.
Yeah.
Interesting, huh? Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sensitive about stuff like that. Totally get how
Yeah.
many other people are in the I've read the essays and the arguments and I'm like, I don't disagree. I
Yeah.
just am less sensitive about that.
Yeah. All right. My last question, because we were going to shut it down. We're going to shut it down pretty soon here. But my last question: what's next? What are you doing next? Now that this book is out, you told me a couple of plans, but I'm curious what if those have changed.
I am really interested in looking at um late prehistory and Bronze Age and to like sort of agriculture and to the semi-present
Mm-hmm.
of some anthropology. I think there's so what I noticed in my book is that there's a lot of cultural stories around what people of different genders, and I use that specifically here, are supposed to do based on how we have lived in the past.
Okay.
And we know that some of that information is true basically from the Victorian era on. You know, many of those stories are true in terms of like what men and women did, again using the gender terms. Um and we have good records for that. But before that, I think there's a lot of assumptions and a lot of incorrect information and a lot of bullshit. And so I really want to. I'm sorry, I'm from New York. My
No,
grandma
it's
had a
fine.
terrible mouth, and she always called it like she saw it, and she used that word a lot. And
Oh,
that's
sure.
something that I feel like I've come up to a lot when people are asking me questions about this, and I'm like, you know, here's the science, here's what we don't know, which is still a lot, and here's what we're trying to figure out. And they're like, well, but we evolved too. Human beings have always, women have always, men do this, all of that stuff. So I'd like to really challenge some of those stories. And
Yeah.
I want to do it by embodying um, some of those tests and ways of living in the past myself. I want to do a little guinea pig science, as they call it.
Wow. Yeah.
I want to like get my body out there trying, I don't know, different like bows and arrows and like trying on different things that we used to wear, the pigments, like the incredible amount of human energy that has been dedicated to trading like trinkets and pigments and like jewelry and decorative stuff for all the sexes is huge. And people are always like, oh, but you know, fashion is so silly, and it's like so deeply human to decorate ourselves. And this is something we've done
Yeah.
and put major effort into. And I want to try some of those things and be kind of experiential and hopefully fun about it. This is like a pretty serious book with a
Yeah.
ton of science, and I got to do a little travel for it, which I'm grateful for. But I would like to do something that's a little more fun to read and fun to write in terms of like just trying stuff with my own self.
Yeah, I love that because I can totally see you. One of the big things a lot of people bring up, they'll go, well, women have never been good at fighting. And you go, well, you don't have to look too far into like Scandinavian history to go, well, they were like shield maidens. And these were some of the most fierce people. Like there was a reason why the Valkyrie were shield maidens. They were chosen by Odin, I believe, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt. But like they were chosen because they were valorous, and that was why they got to bring people to Valhalla. Anyway, I mean, it's like, no, it's not that women can't fight. I mean, read also oh, I can't think of who it was, but whoever it was, they were, the Romans were invading, Anglesey Island, what it is now. And there were women druids who had their claw-like fingers, I think he put it. I mean, it's like, what a bunch of shit. There's not like women can't fight. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I
So
mean,
you should go and get a shield and a sword.
The Amazons were like real people, which is
Yes.
something that, was when I was a kid was still like kind of a myth, but now we know that they existed, and there's like very good evidence. And actually the evidence is that they were from an area that's sort of like near or in what is present day Armenia. And that's part of my background. That's my last name. It's a small part. I'm like a mutt, many different things, but I'm like, oh, I want to go to Armenia and check out these remains and talk to the people there and kind of like, again, embody kind of some of these challenges. And also there's a ton of really interesting research, and you probably know about some of this, and a lot of it's ongoing, like right this second, about people looking at like non-binary and alternative structures by which people understood their sexualities, their gender identities, and all of that stuff. That's like the myriad ways that human beings could interpret being human have all existed. This isn't new stuff. And so I really want to bring that to the fore as well. Like, this isn't like all these new crazy ideas. No, like this is already like people have done all of this stuff, we're just rediscovering it in a certain way.
Right. No, it was people like, well, we only started thinking about gender in 1991 with Judith Butler's book, right?
I love Judith Butler, but
I just want to point out last night. So I'm reading the Chooser of the Slain. That was what I thought. Thank you, Matt. I'm reading this book. I'm making like I'm turning pages, but I wasn't. It's on my Kindle, right? But I'm reading the introduction, right, to The Stronger Sex, and I'm like, oh look, there's my name. And then like 4 paragraphs later, I'm like, oh my god, I'm in the same like introduction with Judith Butler. I was like, wow, like I feel good about that. This was my claim to fame right there. You are my claim to fame.
Yay! I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm super excited about this. I will love to love to see where you go from here. It's going to be amazing. Thanks. I'm so honored to have met you and everything. So
yeah, I'm so glad I found you through, I think my college roommate Caden actually connected us. So
right.
Shout out to Caden.
Yeah. It's kind of a bummer. I don't know if Caden wants to talk to me anymore. So it was a little bit of a falling out, but we won't talk about it here. So,
okay. I didn't even know. So I just got the intro, and then I ended up talking with you, and we did our thing. And so, yeah, but I'm grateful for it because I'm so glad to be connected, and let's continue the conversation.
Oh, please. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. Well, I'll reach back out. Honestly, I've been meaning to reach out for like the last 4 months, and it was Sunday. I think it was Sunday. I was like, hey, when that book come out? And I go, oh, it's coming out Tuesday. I went, oh, I'd better email. Jeez.
Perfect. No, it was perfect timing. So there you go.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been meaning to reach out for like 4 months and just never do. So anyway, but I will. So I would just want to say thank you so much. I mean, this is a great book, and I'm so happy for your conversation. Thank you for making this time to come today as well. I really appreciated it. It's pretty dang good.
Yeah, no,
I'm all gushy.
This is perfect. I'm so thrilled, and this is just how I hoped my book launch day would go.
Good, awesome.
Getting fun conversations and like I did a big like, oh my God, all the social medias for like 2 hours. Then I was like, I'm done going outside. So, and then I got to come
Right.
in and talk to you. Perfect.
I'm gonna put the stuff on social media tomorrow. I wanted to talk about it tonight, and then I'm gonna put stuff on social media tomorrow. Yeah.
Thank
Oh, of course. No, I mean I'm looking. There are a few people who are like, oh, I think I better get this book. I'm like, I think you should. So definitely. So
There's a lot
anyway,
in there. There's like immunity, longevity. There's like stuff on periods and hormones, but then there's fun stories about like wood choppers and competitive wood choppers and this fire woman in upstate New York who's just like this total like tiny badass woman who's like, I just figured out all these workarounds for all these strength tests that I was supposed to do, and like was
oh
just
my
like,
gosh.
okay, like she was like, you don't need muscles in a lot of cases. You need to like figure out smarter ways of doing this, or you need better training or
Yeah,
whatever. And she just did this like completely on her own. She's not a sports scientist, she's just a person. So there's
that's
stories like
sweet.
that in there too. So
That's sweet. All right. Well, anyway, there we go. Thank you again.
thank you.
I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna pull you out. I'll reach back out to you in the next couple of days. I promise. So
Sounds good. It was great to
thank you
talk with
again.
all of you guys.
Yeah, definitely so good. Oops, I missed the switch. Sorry. All right. Thank you again, Star.